come through their pores. Could you touch on that, Chief?
We talking about pheromone responses. It's the same with the woman. Look, a man might not even be attracted to a chick, but let him get the sense that she ain't had no sex in a while. His whole primal instinct kicks in. It's the same with the woman. If she feel like he's a qualified male based on character and disposition, she don't care if you married. She can tell if your wife been holding out on you, and she's gonna exploit it because it's a tactile sense. Let's go. Okay, so you look at it like pheromone comes from the olfactory, it's tied to smell, right? Frequency touches aura to aura, is close proximity, right? So now, if the pheromone faculty is activated, and you also feel in the energy. Now, remember, women naturally intuitive. Those two things gonna tie her into her. What am I intuiting drive? Because she's going to have what you call 3 points of triangulation, right? The smell, the sensation of the energy, and intuition, 3 points of convergence. And now all she have to do is focus on what it feel like, and then she'll know what it is in short order. And the women are not taught to tune into their frequency like that because it disempowers the lower grade of male. And they want the lower grade of male to pollute the dating pool of the qualified women and make them become disgruntled with their selective options. It's all by design.
This. We went from knots to what do we call this now?
Contracts, knots.
Oh yeah, this would definitely be. Oh, this is actually ultimate sacrifice. What is more of a sacrifice than to allow your energy, your divine energy, to be compressed and cultivated up the spine? That's a sacrifice of your lower self. Damn.
Right. So when you're looking at sacrifice got rules to it. So you got what's called primary sacrifice. That's self-sacrifice. The highest form of sacrifice known to man is self-sacrifice. Self-sacrifice don't have to be killing yourself. Self-sacrifice can be you realizing the state and condition of your family and applying yourself to a craft until you develop the mastery skills to change your condition to the level that you can raise all of your condition. That's a sacrifice. If you want to be the greatest at something, Michael Jordan didn't just walk out on the basketball court and be Air Jordan. He had to practice and practice and practice. And when Kobe Bryant wanted to find out what made Mike great, what did he find out? Practice. So he was the first one there and the last one to leave. What do the hustlers say about the block? I'll be the first go on the block for the cheese and be the last motherfucker to leave. Sacrifice. Put in the work.
I think you got a song, Chief Rod, because you got some bars tonight, bro.
I was quoting Scarface. But what, Brad Jordan, one of my favorite all-time rappers. Right? But when you understand self-sacrifice, you can only sacrifice yourself to an agenda that you can reach, or it'll be rejected. That means you won't put in the work to achieve it because your perception has been blinded to the fact that your potential is infinite if you're willing to work for it. But don't nobody want to work for it because we've been conditioned with fast food and microwaves. that everything's supposed to get to the table in a matter of minutes.
Wow.
So now, when it comes to spiritual things, which the spirit don't play the short game, spirits play the long game. This 6,000-year rule of the devil played out over a 6,000-year period. That's forever to one of us. We wasn't here in the beginning, and we hope we could see the end. Right? So the plan was being played out with all of these different actors over 6,000 years with the same rulers at the top. The question is, how did they hold their power? It's continuous evolution.
This was a fantastic show. I want to thank you again, Arisha Stone. I want to thank you again, OJ Yemen. Let me pull this up.
While you're doing that, out of all the other topics, nobody ever asked me about knots before.
Really?
Nobody never asked me about knots before. So much stuff to go into the knots.
It's deep.
Right? Yeah. Like, used to use knots to tie two tribes together in symbolism as in truth.
I see.
This is what the marriage ceremony of tying a knot is about.
How come nobody ever talked about knots? That's like pre-K 101. You got to know about knots. You got to tie your shoes. Imagine if we knew how to do the knots on our shoes to accomplish what we want so we could walk into our destiny.
I see.
So that you got to know that the shoe that you putting on is the shoe that the person who is in the energy that receives what you want, this is the shoe that they would be wearing as they walked into their purpose. Intention matters. Remember, everything is a wave until you give it some attention, then it collapses into the particle.
Woo!
So when you see yourself at your highest, you say, this is something that I would have at this level. Go get it. Go get it, because it's helping you as what they call a spiritual aid, a tool to advance your manifesting potential and collapse it into the reality you experiencing.
I see. She said something about number 9. You know this Oya season, right?
Ties to the 9 ether.
It's Oya season. Just Scorpio season.
Now, wait a minute now. Okay. Now that y'all brought it up, Chief Rod, Arisha Stone, what's the connection with not numbers and Orishas?
This is year 9. This is year of Oya. You can look at Oya's number, look at everything that Oya represents, the interchange, the change, the hurricane, all the stuff that's cleansing the land of this year. Just like Sister Mara said with us last night, when she said this is the year of completion. This is the year of knowing. This is the year of the wood serpent. Everything is connected. All of that is connected. We were just talking about the inner winding of the wisdom, the serpent's wisdom. That's the knot. You know what I'm saying? The DNA is the knot. Everything you said tonight was connected in one shape, word, form. But we're most definitely in Oya season or a time of change. We just stepped into Scorpio season. Scorpio season also represents, in the indigenous culture, represents quick and rapid change.
Yo, what about when sisters wrap that scarf around their head? Do they take the time to put the knot in the right direction?
Damn.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
Definitely. Definitely.
But you know, they normally tie it up intuitively.
I see. Everything's intention.
Like, you might see her one day, she might have her knot right here. She come back next day, her knot over here. Next day, her knot in the back.
Bro, when they have it on the side, you know they're gonna fire up, man. Because if you remember, what's her name? Yvonne Stickney having that knot on the side of her head. Back up, Jack. Get ready.
This is a gazelle, and like I say, you do rapid things, whatever. But yeah, the energy of 9, the energy of Oya is on us right now. So tap into that Oya energy. You spoke on High John earlier, but yeah, most definitely tap into that 9 energy and understanding what shedding is. Right now, we're shedding skin. If we're going, you're talking about knots, you got to shed some skin. You know what I'm saying? The divine serpent wisdom.
Yo, taking it back. When the kids got when the sisters have a whole lot of energy, they got 2 knots. You ever check out the ones with the 2 knots on their head? Chief Rod, Arisha Stone family, they always energized. You notice that? You don't see grandmas with 2 knots. You know, they're called Afro puffs.
Mm-hmm. That's black girl magic.
Big Oya energy.
Yeah. And those are also known as bear ears.
And the more knots they have, the 2 Afro puffs and 1 in the back, they be turbocharged, man.
That's all coded tribal language too. The hairstyle. Look, we don't know why we pay so much attention to people's hair because we leave messages in the hair.
Oh.
You know, when you see somebody with the locks on, that don't tell you the same thing as you see somebody with an afro. But the common denominator is both of those hairstyles tell you, hey, they about self-empowerment.
Yeah.
Right? You never hear anybody say that about weave, even though sisters invented weaves. Weaves. Right? They invented the adorning of the hair. Remember, we used to braid maps into the little girl's hair, so when we fled, we knew where we was going because we running with the map. Right? We used to also conceal food stuffs in the hair, but we wasn't really concealing the food itself. We was concealing the seeds to grow food wherever we go to live off the fat of the land. Because if you can preserve the seed, you're not going to braid enough in a girl's hair to feed a family of 4. And that whatever you braid in her hair is probably only going to feed her once. But if you look at it as a seed, you can do so much more with a handful of seeds than you can with a handful of food ready to eat.
I'm sure.
Right. So they knew that when they got to a certain geography that they would be able to set up camp and grow some food. In the meantime, Papa know how to hunt.
Wow.
Survival in wartime, we came up with all kind of stuff and messages to be relayed through the hairstyles that we wore. So even if you go in the military, they address your hairstyle first. If your hair too long, you ain't no soldier in this man's army.
Facts.
Right? In basic training, I don't care how long your hair is and what your spiritual belief is, it's coming off. See, so they know that it's messages in the hair that they don't want relayed from the battlefield.
I see.
Yo, Arisha Stone, tell us what you moving too fast, brother. Put it back.
No,
what you got there, man.
I'm just confirming what he said about the hair. These are symbol statues, or they might call them Buddha statues, but you know what they were about the hair, and the hair is energy conductors. Like you were just saying, there's energy goes through the hair, the non-ether, you know what I'm saying? All that's connected. But the hair, it tells, even in the today's, we were slaves, we had to look at the maps on our hair. But what happens when we weren't slaves? We were still using our hair to identify each other or to harness energy through the Bantu knots. My thing when I look at different religions like Islam and everything else, when I look at Islam and I look at the source, I go to Allah. When you look at Buddhism, I look at Hinduism and what Hinduism represents everything else. So, and then why did they try to manipulate us with the Buddhists or the fat jolly guy when that's not what the Buddha really looked like? So that's why I really go to the source of the symbols before Buddha. And symbol is the universal black God. And the
Buddha with the black stomach is not a Buddha. The one with the look like the bald head black dude they used to have in the houses in the 70s.
Yeah.
That's not the Buddha.
That's what I said. Yeah, I go straight to the symbol.
Listen, there was a Ugandan priest. He wasn't the Buddha, but they used the symbol because the priest carried the legend of that was so similar to the Buddha. So when we get the hold of the teachings, they gave us a Korean whitewashed Buddha as Siddhartha. But the ones of us who remember the real Buddha, we know that he was about the complexion of us. We know this because of his family lineage. The original Dravidians, original people of India. Right. So back then they were the top world class, but now they're at the bottom, just like us. So now we do the alpha to the omega, where the last becomes first and the first becomes last. Just hope you enjoyed yourself while you was at the top. And hope you did well by the people you was tasked with tending to, because now you about to be tended. Right or wrong, you about to get what you got coming. Good, bad, or indifferent.
You know what? When you look at Transformers, it's coiled. That's not technology.
Everywhere you see a bolt is not technology. Remember, the bolt is just a metal artificial knot. They started incorporating metal into knots as rings and pins.
I want to acknowledge Agnes Free Spirit and her husband Kojo, because last Saturday, Chief Rod, Arisha Stone family, their table, she has a whole lot of eclectic jewelry, but the ones that the people of all backgrounds was attracted to was rings with knots. Almost like a subconscious attraction. So I'm saying with that, imagine if we did not technology in our navel. If you have any navel. What would happen if you put the right coil knot in your navel? How would that affect your vital force? That's how I'm thinking, Chief. I'm just like how to take that and
comparative analysis. The naval is the Navy. The naval is the Navy. And the Navy travel in knots, not miles per hour. We're tying back right to what you're saying. Knots in the Navy. Long short.
Knots in the Navy, knots in the naval. You dropping bars tonight, bro. Yeah.
Hey man, I had a blast coming over here talking about knots. I'm like, it's so much go into knots, and a lot of people don't pay it no attention because they so common. Even our zip ties is predicated upon the understanding of a knot. Because before we had zip ties, we had slip knots. So the science just evolved in order to simplify complex matters.
Yo, look what they dropped in here. Astronauts. I never thought of that.
Wow. He put it up before I said it. You remember the movie Dark Crystal?
Mm-hmm.
You remember the Big Mama when she returned? She left in the universe somewhere and she returned after all the years. That's pretty much been playing out right now. The Dark Crystal.
Yeah, I didn't see the movie, but I know when it came out, I remember the advertisements for it.
You never seen the Dark Crystal?
Mm-mm.
OG, please watch that movie. Come back and break
in the library, man. I didn't have time to watch no damn movies. I was too busy reading books.
I get it.
Woo! Yo, I like that.
And listen what they said about the Big Mama and everything else. And this was what, 20, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 50 years ago now. But when the movie came out, look at what's going on today, and everything that's going on today is exactly what they always knew it. They've been playing it out right in our face. The Dark Crystal, the spirals, the not contracts, all of it. The sacrifices.
Man, check it out.
All right, we're gonna wrap it up on this song. I'm gonna play this a little bit. I want to thank you, Chief Rod. You're welcome to come back anytime. Family, I want to thank you for being with us tonight. And a big thanks to Arisha Stone. Any last words, Chief Rod?
Just keep watching. It's coming.
Yeah. Okay, so hold on, family. I want y'all to listen up to this. Here we go. Let me pause.
Are legal viable outlets for public notice. The legal standard is time-stamped archivable format, right, with a reach of more than 1,000 people.
Mhm.
With that being said,
At the federal jurisdiction, and then so everything, if based on what the information you gave me last week in the tape we did in the Big Mama's 8, where the adjudication thing is a fraud pretty much, and people have already proven this in court, like the general the EE General Electric Company went against a couple companies, went against them and proven that it was a fraud. So that stands the reason the Nationalization Act, copyright, the Patent Act, all these acts that came after that is all fruits of a poisonous tree, right, Rod?
well, when the Pope rescinded the discovery doctrine,
Mm-hmm.
everything that follows the discovery doctrine is rendered null and void using the fruit of the poisonous tree. What do that mean, though? The fruit of the poisonous tree is this. If I rob young elder at gunpoint and take $100,000,
Right.
and I take that $100,000 and I open up a dry cleaners, the dry cleaners is bringing in $10,000 a week in revenue.
Right.
I'm banking it. I'm not spending it. 90 days later, that's nine. Yeah, that's like $90,000 in the bank
Right.
right now. They catch me. They find the weapon, and they still find some of young elder's original money in my person. So they know it ain't no mistake about it. They got the right person. I'm the one that robbed young elder. Okay, now under the fruit of the poisonous tree, when they find out what I did with the money, right?
Yep.
They take my cleaners. They take my bank account. I cannot benefit from these fruits that I gained from this robbing young elder situation.
Wow. Yeah.
Now, there's two things they can do with it. Normally, if the injured party is privy to the information, which means the indictment, right? If he's privy to the indictment, that means he's a legitimate complaining party. And I was found guilty under the Restitution Act. I have to make him whole by surrendering any ill gains acquired off of young elders' stolen money. So when we go into the court and they find out, well, let me show you what he did with the money, and they're gonna draw up a financial chart. It's gonna show how much, what day I robbed young elder, how much I got from young elder, how much I spent on the dry cleaners, how much I made in my accounting process each week of dry cleaners. Right? Now, once they get done doing all of that accounting, let's say that $100,000 I robbed young elder for is now $1 million. I can't have it. They can't give it back to me. Now, where is they getting this from? It's in the Uniform Commercial Code. Until the young elder discover who it was that robbed him, under the Uniform Commercial Code, I can live off of that. But if he come back and say, hey, you the motherfucker that robbed me, right? And I was like, the gig is up, I'm caught, right? Now, according to Uniform Commercial Code, everything that I did up until this point was fine. But everything that I got that's tied to young elders' money has to be surrendered to young elder. Fruit of the poison tree applies. How do that apply to what's going on with the government? They've been sending us into servitude because prison is slavery according to the 13th Amendment.
That's right.
So they've been sending us back into bondage and voluntary servitude at an alarming, disproportionate rate to the other per capita population of the land. And by them sending us into servitude, and we not part of any agreements with them. We was not part, all of us wasn't part of the 5 civilized tribes.
That's right.
Right? The majority of us was part of the 4,995 tribes that's called foreign dependent nations, enemy combatants, belligerent tribes, non-treaty tribes, outlaw tribes. All those are different names that they use in reference to us over the years, other than the epithets that they give us for assumed nationality that we didn't take on.
No.
They don't want me to tell them I'm growth and development and that my chief flag Hoover. They want me to say I'm an American citizen and the president is my leader. He not my leader. He not my chief. Right? So I can't make an allegiance with him because he's not my chief. Mm-hmm. And my chief is belligerent to anybody in public office. Why? Because they belligerent to him first. How do we know this? Because of how they entrapped him into a made up, fabricated case and kept him in prison for 50 years. That's how we know. They actions, right? So that's called an overt act. When you seize the leader of a tribe, that's a blatant act of war. Right? We supposed to be running up in there getting our shit back, but we was under the George Washington Conjure Challenge, which was sorcery, which allowed us to be in a slumber for 200 years. We can't quite figure out what's going on. And now we can see it clearly because we no longer in the age of Pisces and all of the veils must be lifted. So all of the veils being lifted, we can see clearly now the rain is gone. We know who they are, where they came from, how they got here. We know where they settled at. We know how they set up shop. We know their motives, they MO, their modus operandi, their method of operations. We know they kind games, all of their conniving and manipulative tricknology. 120 degrees of tricknology cannot beat 360 degrees of God body knowledge of self. It can't work. Mm-hmm. It's going to be 1/3 short. Because if you got 360, you take 120 away, that leaves you 240 to work with. If your 240 degrees of knowledge itself is not superior to 820 degrees of trick knowledge, then you fake it. So I asked a question years ago. So you say you a God, do some God shit. You don't even know the difference between what gods do and what men do. Do some God shit if you want to be a God. If you're not on the status of a high intellectual capacity, you're not on your God mode yet. If you can't intuit, that means feel your way through what's being done, you ain't in God mode yet. All these people that's professing to be the chosen people of God, the sons of God, the saved people of God, and all these, they all are confused. They're not confused because they want to be confused. They confused because it was designed to confuse them of knowledge of self. So I was talking to a brother a little while ago, and he was telling me about Islam and Nation of Islam. I said, do you know why their doctrines is fundamentally different? He said, no, tell me. And I told him. The tribal rule is you can use anybody's information, but you got to make it your own. You can only stay in another chief house until you become the chief to establish your own. When we show this working in the Nation of Islam by students of Elijah Muhammad, that have took what they learned from Elijah and made it their own, and they opened up their own house. You got Clarence 13X, the Nation of Gods and Earths. You got Silas Muhammad from the New Lost Found Nation of Islam. You got Hulan X, aka Yahweh ben Yahweh, in the Hebrew Israelites. Then you got people that detest Elijah Muhammad after he taught them how to be a man, and they converted to Sunni Islam, like Siraj Wahhaj. Bilal Phillips was all associated with the early Nation of Islam movements in New York. But once they got to the point where they had outgrown what they thought was a doctrine that didn't suit them, they needed that discipline. They couldn't have been a functional imam in Sunni Islam without first being disciplined because of the nature of the people of the land. Because of our nature, the Nation of Islam has to have a higher level of discipline for us because we ain't easy to discipline. And we hard-headed, and we stubborn. And we don't bleed fat meat greasy even when we chewing it. And our lips is shiny. And our fingers is slippery. So we needed an excessive amount of discipline and an excessive amount of organized structure in order to be able to organize the knowledge itself into a cohesive format. A lot of people right now, they see the dirty Moors in the infiltration of our organizations. And then they blame the whole organization for the infiltrators' actions. Right? For the longest, everybody thought that Farrakhan and Elijah Muhammad had Malcolm killed. Until the FBI files finally come out that two of the people that went to prison wasn't even in the location at the time. The one guy that went to prison was actually the only one he was the first one to get out. Make it make sense. He was the first one to get out, walked around New Jersey unharmed and untouched. But them other two sat in prison another 15, 20 years after that guy was roaming the streets. He passed away though, but he was the only one that was actually involved with the New York Police Department, the FBI, and the assassination of Malcolm X. The other two was innocent. They did all that time for shooting Malcolm, and it was two Negro FBI agents that was the trigger pullers. One of them was actually still standing around Elijah Muhammad after the fact. The one with the shotgun and the peacoat. He stayed in the New York mosque the whole time. While the fallout was going on, he knew he was an infiltrator. And he ain't never stopped talking bad about Malcolm. But he was the infiltrator. Right? So when we look back on it now with the FBI reports, and then we realize that all them years we was accusing the wrong people of the fall of our shining black prince. Just like Martin. We thought that some dude named what's his name? Was it Lee Harvey Oswald? No, that's Kennedy. James Earl Ray. All this time we was thinking that James Earl Ray was the trigger man in the Martin Luther King assassination until we discovered that one, the bullet didn't kill him. The doctor killed him in the hospital because it came out in court. And we discovered that this dude was charged with Martin Luther King's murder and had nothing to do with it, was nowhere near the site, and they paid him $1 million to confess and never paid his family the money, which they promised him to do. When they reneged on all this came out in the trial. But also what came out in the trial is that Martin was set up by them niggas that was on the balcony with him.
No Ty Jesse.
And they talked about, it's another receipt if you go back a couple days on my page, where the brother was talking about how they was paid massive amounts of money to the church to bust up the cohesion by sending everybody off and giving them grants to do their own thing. All that was the fallout for Martin. But now we have people who don't understand what Martin went through, saying that he was a traitor because he changed his name from Michael King Jr. to Martin Luther King Jr., just like his daddy changed his name from Michael King Sr. to Martin Luther King Sr. Martin didn't actually have a name change till he was like an adult in his 20s. But they never stopped calling him Martin Luther from the time his father changed his name when Martin was about 5. So he wasn't even using his government name at all. Guess what? When you use a nickname or a non-government name, that's a tribal name. That's your your nickname is your tribal name. That means your people named you that name and it stuck because of your character and your personality. So when we're looking back on history, it's 2020, but it's clouded in a bunch of chaos to keep us confused. They had us thinking that Malcolm and Martin was in opposite ideologies. But when Dr. Clark told us that the contingency plan for the nonviolent movement was to unleash Malcolm. So they had to get Malcolm first before they get Martin. Strategic military planning. We never stopped fighting against the government, and they never stopped fighting against us. When we was complaining in the early 1900s, they didn't have it an open declaration of war on the record. They eventually put it in there where they declared war on the people. We are the people. When you see we the people, that means nappy head, woolly hair, brown skin, Aksumi Americans. Don't mean we the people as in everybody. We the people used to be the name of every tribe in their own tribal tongue, right? Even the word tribe is an exonym. We didn't refer to ourselves separate from one another because the sign language in the original native sign language for our tribal name was always we the people. So no matter, and there was another term we used called the kinfolk. The kinfolk was the ceremonial side that did the ceremonies, right? And they was the ones that ceremonial tribal members went to. They was primarily the Blue House, and they called them kinfolk because everybody in the tribe wasn't a blood member of the tribe. They wasn't in the tribe by blood. They was in there by honor. Different system, different standard. On the Red House, you had to be blood related to somebody, or you can't get in none of their tribes. That's why right now, most of the people, you could reach out to Chief Warhorse. She's not going to talk to y'all. It ain't that she acting funny. She out the Red House. If you ain't related by blood, she don't want to really F with you. She don't really trust nobody that ain't from her bloodline. That's the way that they wired on her side of the family. Right? So our rules, under the kinfolk rules, what we call our GD literature, that teaches us growth and development. And it teaches us how to recognize other tribes and how to treat the foreign tribes when they come on the land. Ambassadors is what we being trained for, right? Why do we need to be ambassadors? Because ain't nobody training us to be it. So the executive board put out the literature that actually trains us to do this work that me and Elder doing, right? I speak up for Malachi, but Malachi not my chief. Y'all gotta remember that. I speak up for Angel Bay. That's not my chief. Larry, my chief. I speak up for Prince Lowe, Four Corner Hustler, and those are kinfolk. They not my chief. But when they've been done wrong, and they've been attacked by the system. I speak up for Giant Africa, but I'm not part of the movement. I speak up for Mutulu Shakur, but I'm not part of the African Liberation Army. I speak up for Finney and Tupac and Huey, but I ain't no Panther, right? I remind y'all about George Soledad Brother Jackson, and I am a gorilla. BGF Blood Oath, right? I speak up for Assata Shakur, but I wasn't part of the New African Liberation Army. All these different people was the leadership that was working to liberate us. So I gotta know what they was doing, know if they was in the right, know how they got infiltrated. If I'm gonna come out and tell our people why we ain't got our shit, and I'm telling y'all why we ain't got it. And no matter whether you like Trump or not, I don't care neither way about it. But he doing the work we need done. He's dismantling their corporations. And Greenland is a critical part of Turtle Island that y'all don't even know. The story is told as the story of Loki and the Ice Princess. Because when Big Mama returned, that's the crown of Turtle Island. That means that the sacerdotal seat in Philadelphia is when they move across the Mississippi, right? She's still gonna have to have what's called a embassy suite in Greenland as representing the crown chakra of Turtle Island. So Trump got to get it back. He ain't got no choice. And
that court. And
we are saying the same thing.
Yeah, right. Go ahead.
You got to remember, Dred Scott applies. We didn't have any rights they was bound to respect. Right? They couldn't give us freedom because we was never slaves. Go back and reread the Dred Scott case. The ones who was captured and given freedom was called freedmen, but they couldn't give them freedom under Dred Scott because they was already free. That's why they named them freedmen. It's also freeman, right? What's the last name? Liberator, which means one that's been liberated, right? So we got to understand that we never stopped fighting since 1492. The war never ended until now. Until now. It just evolved. When you go back to the first 300-400 years, it was a bloody war everywhere they went. They couldn't go nowhere. And they was being protected by people that looked like us, that masqueraded as us. But they wasn't us. And that's why they keep calling people the Black Indians was protecting the colonizers. No. The Black colonizers was protecting the colonizers. The paleface don't start coming over here to the 1600s. Who was we fighting from 1492 to the 1600s? They don't even get into the West African slave trade until after the West African slave trade was abolished in West Africa. So they said it wasn't no palefaces that was doing slave trading over there. And they wasn't coming over here. They was taking them around across the Pillars of Hercules to the Mediterranean, where they had their slave ports at. The slave ports was in Tunis, Morocco, and parts of Egypt, going into the Middle East. And then you had the ones in Europe that was in Greece, Italy, Sicily, which just took a major water hit. Sicily did. It's an island. Sicily is also where the offspring of Hannibal and his armies, who had children with the women from the Iberian Peninsula, they was exiled to Sicily by the Roman Negroes they was fighting. If you don't know who they was fighting, then you can't put this together. You got to realize Romans didn't turn pale-faced until the 1900s. All of those emperors was all brothers, but they got to give you the token. What was it, Marcus Aurelius? They had to give you the token Negro and then paint everybody else white, so it'll look like it was an exception. Well, no, Emperor what was his name? He came from Africa. And the only reason why they had to tell you he was black, because part of his rise from general to emperor, right? They told where he came from as a military genius. They said he came from Africa, so they can't paint him white. And then in that era, for us to believe a white dude came from Africa, paleface came from Africa.
Hey Rob, before we roll, we got about 5 minutes worth of videos, but it's dealing around the dirty Moors. But let me ask you this question because it's gonna set up to watch those videos. Now, could you break down the Ponzi scheme? Because it seemed like to me this was a long Ponzi scheme set up by a whole bunch of infiltration for people that look like us that ain't us, and it seemed like based on all the keys you gave me and when I went to research, started looking into it, it seemed like it always lead back to the Freemasons with this black and white checkerboard flow. Like when they came out with the Nationalization Act 1790 that same year, you either was white or blackballed. You know what I'm saying? And I studied a lodge. In a lodge, when you want to join, when you got to ask a Mason, right? And then they see you do this test rigmarole. Then they vote you in, right? They vote you in by using all white balls. If you get all white balls, they bring you into the lodge. But if one person in the lodge put a black ball in there, then you can't be accepted to the lodge. So could you break down this black and white, the long Ponzi scheme, or the dude that started it and how they came up with it, what you was telling me earlier about the Ponzi?
So the game is okay. First of all, let's address the checkerboard. The checkerboard is not a checkerboard. First off, checkerboard is black and red.
Okay.
That's the first thing you got to know.
Okay.
This is not checkers. This is another game. The game is called chess.
Go ahead.
Right now, in the chess game, the white pieces are on attack. The black pieces are on defense.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Being on defense makes you Humpty Dumpty, meaning that you got the potential, but they don't want you in the white with the free white persons in law. They want to assign you to become the black piece, the civilly mortis, lost and dead at sea. That means that you was originally from the land.
Mm-hmm.
The white pieces on this chessboard are the invaders. We started off playing Battleship. If you go back, there was an announcement in the news back when Trump first took office that there was a British ship that he told they can't dock in the harbor outside of D.C. no more. The reason that is because we had to sink their battleship. But first we had to get rid of the guard ship. The guard ship in the bay represented the guardian ship of the Vatican that was given to the Empire of Britain, right? And they had to keep the guardian, which was a guard ship, in the bay. Now, the guard ship is protecting the ship that ran ashore, the Plymouth Rock, the Mayflower, the good ship Plymouth, right? Malcolm told us we didn't land on Plymouth Rock landed on us, right? Because he was telling us about the international complaint that got us in this condition where we had to come up with an alternative solution than bloody war. This was the George Washington challenge. But first, they had to make a blood sacrifice. In a book called the Bible, they got what's called the blood of the righteous, or first blood of the righteous. The first blood of the righteous in sorcery and blood magic mean when you invade a land, you got to get the highest ranked individual you can capture and kill him and spill his blood and use his blood to write the blood oath contract. This blood oath contract we call it the United States Constitution, not the one that's in the Library of Congress. That was the first Constitution. This is a secondary Constitution. Now, this is the Boston Massacre after the Boston Tea Party. The Boston Tea Party, the T is the square. This is telling you that it's a hangman game about to take place. In other words, it's about to be a public execution as represented by the Boston Tea Party. The Boston Tea Party was the prelude to the Boston Massacre. The Boston Massacre culminated with the death of Crispus Attucks, and they have to tell us he was the first person to die, to shed blood for this nation. No, he was not. He was the first one of us to shed blood, that they can put us in a stupor by writing the Constitution in his blood. Right? Now, they still have to go on a killing spree because they got to get rid of everybody that remember the old ways. This is where you bring in your Black Brotherhood of Spain, right? El Español Hermanos de Negros, and your KKK, because they are the origin of the KKK. The regalia of the KKK comes from the Black Brotherhood of Spain, which was established by Moors in the Dark Ages. Okay, now, these people in the South, by the tribes, is referred to as the Black Hand, because the leader of the raids always had on that white regalia, KKK regalia, but the Black Hand was always hanging from under that white robe, and it wasn't no glove. Only thing they can tell the antiquity to identify who their attacker was to tell them it was the Black Hand that hang from under the white robe. Later, they gave pale faces black robes to mirror flip the circumstance. And this is where you get your Judiciary Act, your false judiciaries under the 1863 Charter of Savannah, Georgia, by the French King George, who became King of England. He told them to take everything from us using the law. Well, the law that they given us is predicated upon levies and liens. The lien is the contract, because when you lien, you at a slant. The contract means against the tract or against the land, but you the living land. But they want to tell you the living man, because they want to separate you from Mother Earth. They want to tell the son that he don't have to honor the mother from which he came, as long as he can get the current that you can see, that paper, the green. The green is just the dye marker, right, that you put in the water to see where the current take it. And that way you can know what tributaries is coming from where in order to find out how you get into the mainstream. The mainstream is the old Mississippi, but we think the mainstream means the common collective of the pop culture. The mainstream is the Mississippi because the old Mississippians is the oldest blood of the land, with first in time being first in line, having first right to the earth rights in order for one of the sons to restore the mothers. We remember the codes, but we have to figure out how to apply them in modern times with modern circumstances and situations. But we have to go back to the old ways in order to understand the redemption process. So they gave us the grandfather clause. They told you it was a Mrs. clause with your Christmas story, but they never told you that there was a grandmother clause in law, because the grandmother clause is tribal. That's why they keep erasing everything that the tribal mothers do on the land, right? If Lucy Parsons would have had the right strategist behind her, she would have told her if she would have sat in the sacerdotal seat in Philadelphia, she would have overthrew the conjure. But since she didn't have nobody tell her, And Empress Verdiasi didn't have nobody tell her. They couldn't stop it. Red House. Now we got to revert back to the Blue House. The Mississippi Delta Blue. Delta Blue is the Marines. Semper Fi. The Marines come from the Delta as the frogmen of the Navy, which was a special forces tribe from the land. But we don't know the history of this stuff, so we thinking that these is foreigners. They operating as foreigners, but they using our old stuff to their advantage. When any special forces operations was taught and trained from the land in warfare on the land. And this is why they kept hiring people from the land and putting other people on the land that don't belong to the land in order to confuse how warfare is fought. Right? Now, once they do all of this, it's a scrambled egg now. It's going to be almost impossible to figure this stuff out. Especially with you add the paper genocide, the Trail of Tears, the Indian train that don't nobody talk about no more. And I used to hear about it all the time when I was a little boy. When the old people used to be talking about, yeah, I remember they came down and told my grandma, you got an Indian train coming. You going on? She said, I ain't getting on no Indian train. I'm staying right here on my land. That's what the people was calling it in the South. It was called the Indian train, but none of us want to get on it. And as they went through, they incorporated the children from the Indian boarding schools into the mix with the very few of us who actually went into the land. This is how they was able to develop our old culture, because they had us teaching it to them. Right? They all talk that talk. All them $5 Indians be coming out like I just blocked one today on my Facebook page, and I don't block nobody. You got to really be far for me to block you. Right? But when he want to try to convince me I'm from Africa and he from Siberia, then we ain't got nothing to talk about. I'm not the import. Right? I'm the original. I had a conversation a few years ago with a Moor, and he was like, which tribe you from? I said, all of them. He said, what you mean? I said, my bloodline is the root stock of all tribes that's native to this land, that's original to this land. Old Mississippian blood, Aztec, Inca, Olmec, I don't care what you call them. They the same people. And we ain't never went nowhere. We still here. That's why Tupac can talk to me in a song and tell me way more than you can read in the book. And the song only 3 minutes long on average. Right? He can get more information to all of the chiefs on the land in one song than you can put in a whole book. Brother Jay, cold talker like a mug. You go listen to Brother Jay, and if you can understand the Egyptology he using, the tribal lingo he using, and the way that he's using it, he can educate you on your condition. Raquel, one of the greatest to ever do it. Follow the leader. Brother said, digging my ducks, never dug him. He couldn't follow the leader long enough, so I drug him. In the danger zone. He should have ranged his own. Space in the place just to cut to range the tone. It's one R in the alphabet. It's a 4-letter word, and it's about to get more complex from one rhyme to the next. Eric B, be easy on the flex. Right? They can tell us stuff. Ice Cube. He know he had Afro Chief. Right? We call him Afro Chiefs because the hairstyle now is referred to as an Afro. That's not what they was called in antiquity. They was just called Mississippians. Mississippi is not a European word, but it's coded and loaded with code. But if you don't know the code, you won't never flip the message out of the code. And I ain't going to go into decoding Mississippi because there's a lot of people that think I'm just making stuff up. They'll figure it out one day, and I'm going to be using it to my advantage the whole time. And when they figure it out, they're going to say the only way that he could have did all that, he had to know what this means.
That's fire.
Cool.
Yeah, I seen him next to that other picture.
Right behind the checkerboard floor. I mean, we noticed as soon as he said the ancient ones who know the game, the checkerboard floor popped up. That's not a coincidence.
They're not saying the Felicians. They saying with a V, right? They saying Venetians.
Venetians, yeah. That's the ones who settled Venice. The Venetians settled Venice. The Etruscans settled Tuscany. Right.
I read it.
Right. So there's two different groups. Those are the ones was sent in as in their children to civilize the European, but they didn't do what they were supposed to do. But this is a whole nother story. I don't want to go back down that road. But the whole thing they were showing you in there was how they was using infiltration, bribery, and deception the whole time. Those are different kind games. This is why you say a dude that's book smart and street smart, the most dangerous one. Because he can see the game, the times they play in the corporate world, in the business world, in the politics. The average person can't see the kind in the game, so they continue to play the game in fraud. As long as you participate in the fraud, then you liable as a participant to fraud. So when the fraud come tumbling down, your world come tumbling down around you because you tied into the fraud. This is why we have to use the oral tradition to override the paperwork, because the paperwork is a paper chain designed to trap you, and the ones who sell paperwork are slave catchers. Because when you do the paperwork, in order to put somebody on notice with their own system, right? They not gonna honor that.
That's what I was thinking about too. That other
right.
part.
So it was like what I posted the other day. When the whole system is acting in fraud and you catch it, which one of them gonna give up their lifestyle in order to honor your recognition of the fraud? No, they all acting in fraud. They can't go against the fraud they acting in because you figured it out. But the more people coattail you pull, the more people abandon the fraud, because that's the only defense to a crime. That the abandonment defense of a crime of inclusion. I mean, it's a conspiracy, a group. When you discover the fraud, you're supposed to cease and desist all activities associated with the fraud, right? The only problem with the way that the system is set up through adhesion contracts, even when you think you're stepping away from the fraud, you stepping back into the fraud. So you still giving them jurisdiction, trying to assert that they don't have jurisdiction, right? You got to wait till they kidnap you first. Then you got to be a master of the habeas corpus, the great writ, right? The last person suspended it was George Bush, suspended the power of the writ. But the Constitution said that no act of government shall suspend the power of the great writ. So it was supposed to be null and void, but the courts stopped hearing habeas corpuses once you're done is done. They can only hear over it one time. And then they didn't have to accept the habeas corpus. Before they had to at least acknowledge the habeas corpus and tell you why they're not going to review the case. Right? So the suspension of the writ means that you trapped in the position of servitude. This is why, like, I'm not on no probation, parole, none of that. I did my time of walking down my parole, right? So I'm no longer a bond servant. All of the ones that are still locked up is bond servants, knowingly or unknowingly. It don't matter. Everybody locked up is a bond servant. That means that there's a bond that you forced to be in service to, that's tied to you through the government, right? Now I can speak up for the ones in there where they use fraudulent means to ensnare them in their traps, right? Because if you don't know how they trapped them, you won't know how to tell the people they got trapped. So they won't be able to see that they was never supposed to be there. And that alone should be sufficient to free them. Like, they didn't say Larry told the guy, hey, go shoot this dude. That's not what he was in there for. Larry was in there because they said the dude believed that Larry needed this done, so he just took it on himself to go do it.
Yeah.
That's what Larry went to prison for. It's called influence. That law in Illinois has since been taken off the books. Right? So the law that Larry is in the state case on is no longer a law in Illinois. Fruit of the poison tree apply. When you repeal the law, you release the man.
Right. That's a fact.
Right?
They did that with the weed.
Unless you fall under Dred Scott.
Dang.
An outlaw tribe. You got to think about that.
That's right, Rod.
You got, in order for them to continuously hold you, they are acknowledging the fact that you are a tribal leader with no treaty.
Yeah.
And they're going to force you into a treaty agreement in order to liberate you from your bondage. And that's why Larry been in there that long, because he won't do contract business with the government. And they know this.
Yeah, he said it
The same with Angel Bay, Jeff Ford. He wouldn't do business with the government. That whole case against him, the terrorism case, is the same case they used to murder Prince Lowe. It's the same case, the same actors. Trying to trap another prince up after they took down the king. He not gonna fall for that. And when he didn't fall for it, they murdered Prince Lowe on the west side. Chicago know what I'm talking about. They lied on Jeff. They brought in some people who supposed to be code crackers, and they figured out the language of the Keystones. And they said that Jeff was giving them orders in coded messages, right? But the messages don't match what they telling you they saying.
Yeah, they saying that he said go get a bazooka, or all this crazy stuff.
Jeff never said that.
Yeah,
right. They got documentaries on that stuff showing you how they set it up. Jeff was already locked up when that happened.
Yeah, CIA.
He was doing a meatball, but they used that because they couldn't afford to let him hit the streets again. He had learned too much, and he had become too influential in the city of Chicago. He would have been able to start organizing the tribes. Between him, King David, Larry Hoover, and Big Bull, and a few others, they would have been able to organize the whole city of Chicago in an instant to put down any resistance from the government aside from air bombing.
Damn.
You gotta remember, it was a dude that looked like us that ordered the bombing on Philadelphia move on the family of Giant Africa. Because they was going back to the tribal way of living. Because Giant Africa understood that you have to be one with the land in order for you to stay healthy and have longevity. And they trying to cut us off from the land and force us into labor camps. Right? They didn't have to blow them people up. But we don't remember the first part, though. Before they blew them up, they shot them up. We forgot about that part, though. They were sending bullets in there with women and children hiding for their life before they dropped the bombs.
Damn, boy.
We not paying attention. They never stopped warning against us. Right? We trying to follow what they call in Islam Sirata Mustaqim, the straight and narrow way. The only way that you can get out of this without going to a raw, bloody warfare is by strategy alone. You have to out-strategize the enemy. Expose his fraud to the people while you showing the people who's behind the fraud, what they doing with the receipts. Right? That's why these oral traditions are so important. Because under the oral tradition, we can use their written word to prove the corruption of their ways. We can show you they split tongue when they talking with two agendas by they doing two different things in actuality. They signed treaties saying one thing, but their actions did another. That means they came in with two agendas. They lying. They spreading falsehood. Now, the ones who are unaware are the orphans who's growing up after they had murdered their parents and their grandparents with no information or no knowledge of self. Anybody that can...
George Washington hats. I mean, the physics and the George Washington Memorial and being Bay being a traitor, really, to me.
They are the listen, they are the ones who came from Europe and wanted to lay claim to this land. The tripartite system that he laid down is based on the 3 degrees of masonry. So you have judicial, legislative, and executive. Executive is police, legislative is lawmakers, and judicial is the ones who mediate between the activities of the two. Right? So it's based on entered apprentice, fellow craft, master mason. Right. That's Blue House. The principles of the Blue House is being laid down, but it's coming out of the 32-degree Scottish Rite Red House from Europe. Free white persons in law, Scottish bankers, having established the Scottish Bank off the Scottish Rite Freemasons. These are the ones who not only are they establishing the 3-party system or the 3-part system, they're also in the process of instituting a centralized banking cartel. They're going to use this banking cartel to deplete us of our wealth using debt and inflation. Debt is told to you as interest rate or taxation. And the inflation is taking it by changing the value of the currency as you lower the value of the goods. I mean, you lower the value of the currency, it increases the value of the goods. So that's cutting it off the top and the bottom. Pretty soon they're going to cut you all the way out.
Damn. Mafia.
Right. So the 3-part system had to be established in order to commercialize everything under the salvage right being applied through Uniform Commercial Code. What we know as the black codes is derivatives of the commercial code, right? Because it's to tell them how to handle the ones discovered dead walking around lost at sea. Right? C is a musical note. Right? So when you lost at sea, the only thing you can do is try to rise to E. Right? So it's a Mississippian blues connotation. To rise from C, class, to E is educated. Right? So when everything means something, but it don't mean anything until you say it means something. By establishing firm definitions, you establish the criteria by which everybody will follow the system according to the understanding of the language that's been defined for them. When they realize that they speak more than one language simultaneously, and then they start realizing they multilingual, Because we don't just speak in words. We speak in body language. We speak in facial expression, right? We speak by altering our positions, what they call gestures. And these messages carry through in the form of the hieroglyphics. So we can tell each other the story and wake everybody up from the slumber, right? So the George Washington, Crispus Attucks connection is the same as the Benjamin Banneker and Lewis and Clark,
Mm-hmm.
right? Remember, they surveyors. Lewis and Clark is surveyors. Benjamin Banneker is what they call it, a jurist, an astrologer, astronomer, and he's a navigator.